Dear friends, this is Dr. Vijay Alexander from MAG TNPSC Academy. Let us discuss the Climate Summit and Disappointment. The 29th Climate Summit, held from November 11th to 22 in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, ended in disappointment for India and other global South nations. India, representing the voice of developing nations, opposed the $300 billion annual climate fund announced at the summit for the global south. The absence of major leaders like US President Joe Biden, Chinese President Xi Jinping, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi diminished the significance of the summit. The 23 countries and the European Union, which proposed frameworks back in 1992, failed to reach a consensus. This indicates that the issue of climate change will persist without meaningful solutions. A global agreement disregarding the perspectives of developing nations has been imposed on the world. Global warming has led to severe droughts in many parts of the world. Extreme weather patterns such as heavy rainfall, devastating cyclones, flash floods, and cloudbursts, wildfires, glacier melting, and rising sea levels have become alarmingly frequent. As a result, several nations are facing repeated natural disasters and are being pushed into economic crisis. Hundreds of small islands in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans are at risk of submerging due to rising sea levels. Some representatives of island nations threatened by extinction walked out of the summit, protesting the lack of concrete measures by wealthy nations. Wealthy countries responsible for significant environmental damage and greenhouse gas emissions made promises but failed to take earnest steps to address these island nations' concerns. The summit, which was supposed to conclude earlier, extended discussions by an additional 33 hours due to intense debates. It is ironic that Azerbaijan, a leading fossil fuel producer, chaired a climate change conference. Additionally, southern nations were not allowed to voice their concerns before the agreement was finalized. Developing nations are disproportionately affected by climate change. Despite being forced to adopt low carbon pathways, their growth is being hindered. Meanwhile, Western countries which have already industrialized and prospered through high carbon emissions are now advocating for developing countries to limit their emissions. To limit global temperatures rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, developed nations must ensure compensation for those losses faced by developing countries. The decision to increase climate funding from $100 billion annually to $300 billion by 2035 has been criticized for its lack of clarity on who will provide the funds and the extended time frame. India, supported by 130 other countries, expressed that the resolutions of the Pagu summit were merely eyewash. Western countries claimed that India is responsible for 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions and 3.47% since 1750, which is disheartening when considering India's relatively smaller contribution to historical emissions. Thank you.